Hey guys, what is up today? So today I have a slightly different video, which is more focused on how to improve as a high key player. It's mainly focused on the things that I think about during a key, my approach to different mobs, and basically what I'm thinking about during the key to help you guys to improve your gameplay and get better at high keys. This is definitely something that I want to do more of. So we're going to be looking at some Prot Warrior gameplay I did. I mainly chose the Prot Warrior because I feel like it's a nicer tank to look at than the Guardian Druid. A little bit more going on. So right from the bat we go in. We're going to pre-shocking Disclosure to help us with aggro in the first pull. I did, however, make a mistake. I should have also pre-last standard. You don't really keep the last stand buff, but what you keep is the tier set value you get after the last stand, which would have helped a little bit with aggro right at the beginning and given me a little bit DR. But anyway, regardless, it was a small mistake. So I go in, I immediately avatar to help me with aggro. Obviously, you know, I go in shield block. I pop last stand here already as a little bit of a buffer because this first part is really scary. And then as soon as I go into the Hulk, I immediately shield wall to help me kind of with aggro. So there is a lot happening in this pull. Like, it's a ridiculous amount. There's a lot of things that you have to know about in high keys to really basically tank it efficiently. So one of these was, if I slow this video down a bit, this bleed I get here. Now this bleed is kind of RNG. Doesn't always happen in the first pull, but sometimes it does. And it's from the Nashers. And basically it's incredibly deadly. So you need to watch out for stuff like this. This basically comes with experience, with playing again and again and again. You know, you get to the point where it's muscle memory. You see something like this, you instantly press Dwarf Racial, you know. So because we pressed last stand earlier on in the pool, we have our tier set value going into this pool now. So we're going to get lots of DR and a lot of damage on every single shield slam, which is really nice. So what I use for the first piercing shard is I basically use spell block for the initial. Unfortunately, I do actually die here, and that's mainly because I believe we didn't quite pop Stove's VT as early as I would have liked it. I do think though that after looking back on this video, there is a slightly better build that I could have ran, where I go double shield wall, but actually lose the spell block to basically have an extra shield wall for the start of this. And then it means that I can play another talent where I get more overall rage called Blood Surge, which basically helps me tank a pull like this more efficiently. This is a fortified dungeon, so this is exceptionally hard. This is by far the hardest pull for Prot Warrior in this dungeon, and you have to play very good on high forts to basically tank this pull. This is very much considered a Guardian Druid pull, but you can certainly do it as Prot Warrior. It's just incredibly difficult. Oftentimes, losing cheat death, it's sort of whatever, in my opinion. So the second one, I always have sack from Thana, or from my Holy Paladin. He always sacks me there on the second one. As you see, you know, I'm pressing Avatar basically off cooldown. So a big mistake a lot of people make is, as Prot Warrior, you generally want to almost press stuff off CD. You want to press Demo Shout basically off CD. Obviously there's times where it's like, okay, this is a terrible usage of Demo Shout, I'm going to hold it a little bit. Or maybe you want to hold it for X tank mechanic, tank buster, blah, 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 blah. But for the most part, you just want to send it off CD. Same with Avatar, pretty much the same with Ravager and Thunderous Roar, and also a shield charge as well. Lots of times I see people kind of like holding it for like way too long. You just want to send off CD almost. Like Prot Warrior is a very almost degenerate playstyle. And basically because I shield walled at the start of this encounter, for the most part as a tank, the hardest part of tanking is usually right at the beginning, when you're pulling everything together. That's because not everything is stacked in front of you. Maybe some mobs hit you in the back. You have to focus on aggro as well. Lots of times it's the trickiest part. And this is basically where a big defensive at the start basically helps you out massively. So yeah, I do struggle towards the end here. Thana also uses AM as well to basically, with my shield wall, to basically carry me at the end. If this mob, the Piercing Hulk, got a 4th shard off, that would either be a bubble taunt from Thana, or it would be me basically leaping away. Obviously, if no one dies and our damage goes correctly in this pull, a fourth one should never happen. So what we actually could have done, and we should have done maybe, is have Thana bubble taunt one much earlier. Like he could have bubble taunted, say, the second one, and then he could have sacked me on top for the first one. In hindsight, we should have done that because that would have probably prevented my cheat death from happening. But regardless, using cheat death on first pull, in my opinion, is absolutely fine because I don't need it for literally 8 minutes. So you basically losing it at the start is absolutely whatever to me. That's the thing with tanking, is that you can almost always do something better in terms of planning CDs. It's what makes tanking fun. Nothing is ever truly perfect. Anyway, so the augmentation, Antushka actually leaves early on that pull so that we can get to the boss. So yeah, this boss, even on Tyrannical, I tend to just always sit in battle stance. So as Prot Warrior, the way I view it is that for the most part, you're kind of chilling on most boss fights, to the point where you don't really need to ever kind of like go into defensive stance unless it's for a, you know, certain tank buster or your healer dies or whatever, or something like that. And I feel like boss fights are far more scriptable than a lot of AoE packs where a lot of random things can occur. So the most part, I like to try and min-max as much damage as possible on bosses and basically play in battle stance. Whereas on Trash, I tend to always play in defensive stance every time, just for like safety. There's so many things that can change or slightly change, and just having that extra beefiness is just really nice, I think. So I am going to skip through this boss mostly because this boss is kind of boring. Like the only thing I'm really thinking about is, or what I like to do is, if you taunt the first skitter that spawns on this boss, your healer, if it's a Holy Paladin, can taunt the second one if it spawns far, and then you're able to taunt the third one that spawns, which just basically makes getting all the mobs under the boss, stacked under the boss, and you're doing like efficient damage to it very easily. The other thing I wanted to say as well, I pretty much use Last Stand off CD to proc the tier set and just to single target damage as much as possible. But yeah, for the most part on this boss fight, I'm mainly focused on getting the skitters under the boss ASAP, getting as many skitters on the boss as possible, you know, all stacked, doing damage to them, because that's the thing that can wipe you. And then I'm also focused on space as well. I'm trying to minimize as much space as possible. You see here, ideally I could have gone far more to the right. This was actually kind of a hard moment where I don't really want to run on top of the crystalline ground because it's going to do massive damage. So I basically shield wall, I wait a second, the frontal's casting at me, and then I move, basically in one efficient movement with leap. So yeah, that's basically what you kind of need to watch out for lots of times on a boss like this. So this pull, obviously I'm going to sit in defensive stance the whole time. So the start of pulls is always the hardest because things aren't stacked. There's multiple things that can go wrong. This is why I call for sack from Thana at the start of here. You basically always want to run into a pack with something up. Like here I could have shield walled instead of called for Thana's sack. So here I call for Antushka's bleed removal to get rid of the instant bleed on me. Basically, the way you want to tank these pulls is you want to focus on dodging the breakers. If you can, sometimes it's really tricky. Aside from popping stuff at the beginning, you want to pop a defensive every single time you get the bleed, unless you have a clear, like unless you have a dwarf or bleed removal. You see what I do? So yeah, what I do here is a little bit of a mistake, I think. What I should have done is, in hindsight, maybe saved shield wall for the start of this pull and then dwarfed earlier. What I did was the other way around. It did work out kind of well, but I almost did die, to be honest with you. Also, this pull can be very rough in that we pulled the pack when the old Nasher was still alive. So I got back-to-back bleeds very quickly. And yeah, you see here, I kind of panic. I actually make a mistake. I press shield wall. Did actually work out pretty good because I got hit by a lot of the breakers, but I pressed shield wall when basically Antushka also dispelled, which means that for the next bleed that's coming, I am actually going to be in a bit of a trouble. But yeah, you see here, I'm kiting back. So a big thing about tanking is oftentimes you want to slightly kite back and never be in the same position all the time, just because lots of times you can avoid potential melees. And it's, in a way, it's a way of damage reduction, you know, being like constantly on the move. So yeah, we're going to finish up this pull. Not much really going on here, other than the fact that I'm trying to dodge the avalanches. using stuff on the Nasher bleeds. This last bleed is going to hurt a lot. It's good to be very vocal because you can see right now, like I will basically unmute this. Tough bleed, no dwarf. You see right there, I tell Thana, it's a tough bleed, no dwarf. Lots of times you need to be very communicative to your healer and just basically let them know, yo dude, I'm gonna struggle here. A lot of times tanks don't communicate that well to their healer, and you know, it could result them in dying or popping something that they want to hold. For example, I want to hold my last stand and shield wall for next pull, because next pull is going to be another Hulk. And that's something you have to think about a lot as a tank, is what can I use in this pull? What comes up for the next pull? You know, it's just a constant kind of external / big defensive rotation as a tank. And yeah, one of your most important tools is to be vocal, you know. So I tell Thana, you know, hey, you need to heal me a little bit more here. It's a tough bleed. And what he's going to do is he's going to basically cast more than he would potentially normally. You know, normally he might be doing, you know, a bit more damage or something, right? It is very important, and it's a big part of tanking, I think, is just to speak. It might seem really simple, but it's honestly something that's overlooked a lot, I think. I think it's a very big tip to get better at the game. It's just to be able to communicate better. And on top of that is also being able to communicate efficiently as well. You know, just say, tough bleed, I need healing here. Boom, done. You know, no real waffling. You just like, boom, you talk about it. So here we CC a Shaper because we know this key is like very easy on time, and we just want to kind of go for safety. This first bleed is like really easy because I basically have a lot of rage because, you know, I have a bit of demo shout rolling. And then on top of that, I also have Last Stand, and I use Spell Block for the initial part. So Spell Block doesn't work against the Piercing Shard dots, but it works against the initial portion of it. The next one, I have Sec, and then if this one gets a third cast, which it actually doesn't, the guy just gets melted, I will have Shield Wall. So this guy on a 32 was actually very easy. I didn't even have to pop my Shield Wall at all. Obviously, I planned to use Shield Wall. It wasn't needed, which was kind of nice. So yeah, here we play double Shaper, and we're just killing the Geode. So this is like more of a M+ group thing, but normally in M+, you assign different people to do like mobs together. For example, in this current group, we have me, Crims the Mage, and Stove the Shadow Priest on one mob, and then there is Dana plus Antushka on another mob, kind of like rotating our stops / kicks on different mobs. I guess one of the biggest tips I can give you as Prot Warrior is knowing what things you can reflect. I will drop a lovely, basically Google document from Sense. He's a mod in the Prot Warrior Discord, and he gives a basically like very detailed analysis of what you can reflect / can't reflect, what you can block / can't block, what you can spell block and not spell block with different mobs, different bosses in the raid and in every key in M+. He gives like very detailed information. Okay, so on this boss, you basically want to press reflect almost on pull, and then you press reflect basically off cooldown to have it back for Ularog's Sunder. So yeah, the third one you're never going to have reflect for, but you basically want to try and have reflect. You see here, I actually messed it up. So I made a mistake where the second reflect wasn't off CD enough, and I actually end up missing a reflect on this boss. So I end up missing a bunch of damage, unfortunately. Had I been slightly better with my reflex, I would have got another one off. It's just something you have to think about a lot. And yeah, here we do the puzzle. Oh my lord, I hate this puzzle. I find it very difficult on my eyes sometimes. It's very hard when there's like rocks falling from the ceiling to actually see it, but I do manage to find it. So basically on this boss, you just really want to know timings. For example, I know as soon as this boss comes out, I need to... So here, I actually should have pressed reflect much earlier. I actually make another mistake again. I press it a bit too late, but I know that the first cast he's going to do is Sunder, and then I know the second one. So the second one, I see that I have an absolutely ridiculous absorb. Like my absorb is massive from Ignore Pain. Normally I would press shield wall for this Sunder, but I see that my absorb is huge. I'm like, there is no way, even in battle stance, I am going to die from this. It's impossible. So that's why basically I don't pop anything here. Now he's going to do basically another Sunder. So this is where I messed up. If I had reflected 1 second earlier than when I did on the first cast, I would have got it back for here on the third cast. So because of that, I end up basically losing a reflect, which is not great for obvious reasons. And yeah, I get hit again, which is why I press shield wall. And here I mess up again, actually. I press my spell reflect way too early, and I end up losing it. So yeah, basically I missed out on 2 reflects on this boss fight, which is not great. Or well, actually I missed out 3 reflects, I guess, but it ends up not really mattering because of the fact that we would have got an extra phase anyway. It obviously isn't great that I missed 3 reflects. But yeah, anyway, the second puzzle is like super easy. So yeah, what happened here is actually reflect actually bugs out, I think. So this happens sometimes. Yeah, as you see here, I press reflect and it doesn't do anything. So this has actually been a common bug that happens in Northern Slayer quite a lot recently. I don't know what the cause of it is. It just seems to just happen. So unfortunately, because of that bug, I end up missing 4 reflects on this boss fight. So this boss fight lasts a lot longer than what it should have, unfortunately. But yeah, regardless, it happens. So this next pull is very tricky. I basically have the mage pull the crocodiles for me, because it's very scuffed to pull them, since the only ranged ability I have is throw axe. So here I actually kind of make a mistake. So I go into this pull, avatar immediately, I leap into the geode. So here I should have shield walled already. I kind of like press it a bit late. I also spell reflect and miss the reflect on the shaper because I also kicked him as well, which is not great. And then we actually ninja pull. This is like disaster right now. We weren't meant to pull that other pack straight away, and I kind of like need to basically just full focus on surviving here. So lots of times stuff goes to shit in M+, like the plan changes and things go really wrong, and you have to just adapt. And this is partly why I think that cooling as a tank is not good, because when stuff like this happens, like for the most part, cooling as a tank is absolutely fine. But when stuff like this happens and goes wrong, if you're also cooling on top as a tank, I think it's just a disaster. Because I think when things go wrong, I think ideally the tank should not be cooling. Like my pure focus, what I do here is, so normally I actually cool on one of the mobs. And what I actually do, and I think I say it in this key, is someone else needs to cool. Like I just say that very clearly. Someone else needs to cool right now. And basically I just fully focus on my surviving as much as possible. I play this pull as good as I can in order to, you know, basically live with what went wrong. Because this is a very difficult pull and basically a lot of stuff could go wrong. You know, it's a 32 fortified pull as a prot warrior. You know, there's basically a lot that can go wrong. So basically what I'm trying to do is I'm not trying to move too much. Essentially these grub masters do a AoE smash called Stone Shatter, which is around the tank. And basically if I move too close to someone, I could they will just get one shot basically on this key level. You do see here that we do shamble a bit. We miss a kick that I think I could have taken, and I also could have reflected it as well. This bolt. Yeah, sometimes, I don't know, things go like very wrong and you're like sort of panicking. It's something that, you know, you can always like constantly improve on. It's why I think one of the biggest tips I give to people who want to get better at the game is to record your own gameplay, because I think you yourself should be the biggest critic when it comes to improving yourself and getting better at the game. I'm a firm believer no one is perfect at this game. People love to overhype people and talk about, oh my god, this guy is like amazing, blah, 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 blah. But I think the best way to improve is to have this idea of what is, you know, a really, really, really good player, and to be constantly striving towards that. Because yeah, as you see there, like on that pull, I could have played that better. I could have reflected. I could have also kicked. I had focus on the mob. I think I might have had my Stormbolt ready. I'm unsure about that, but yeah, there's always like improvement to be made. Okay, yeah, so on this pull, what I like to do is, so basically you can reflect the Toxic Wretch. However, you can only reflect every other one. So there's always 3 sets of wretches, and then he does the tongue on the tank where he pulls you in. So what I like to do is, so the first one, I obviously reflect. The second one, I just straight away dwarf it. Just have my dwarf back later again. And then the third one, I reflect again. So yeah, I do stay in battle stance basically the entire time on this boss, because I think this boss fight is very easy to tank as warrior. And you can just, you know, this is the boss fight to truly min-max your damage and just go ham. Also, I'm gonna say as well is that it's really nice when you play the cheat death trinket. It gives you this safety net where you feel much calmer because you know, okay, I have this, you know, thing that will save me if I do die, which always does feel nice. So yeah, the next one, which I cannot reflect, I just straight away shield wall it. So I'm basically just rotating something every time for every wretch that I can't take, and I'm just trying to do as much damage as possible. See on this boss, I'm doing like roughly 90k DPS. Obviously, I lose a bunch of damage when I go out, but yeah, I'm just trying to pump this boss as much as possible. It's something that I like to focus on a lot, especially on bosses, is just doing as much damage as possible. You'll see that on last boss as well. This one I spell block, although I'm not actually sure if you can even spell block it. I think you can, but I'm not actually 100% sure on that one. And then yeah, the boss is going to enrage here. So for the most part, even though the boss is enraged, you're still really chilling as a prot warrior. I'd say the only time it's like a bit monk-esque is when you can't get rid of one of the toxic wretches. But you see I have dwarf ready, so even if this guy lives a little bit longer, it's going to be like a-okay for me. So you see this one I reflect. Next one, if it happens, I'm going to dwarf. There's basically like no chance of me dying. So really important on that boss just now is you don't really want to pop anything big because of the fact that you want to save it for the next pull, because the next pull is very hard. Like you do Demolisher, Breaker, plus 2 other breakers, plus the Scorpion. It's like very, very tricky. So what you can do here is you can pull the 2 mobs yourself as a tank, but I like to have Stove do it just because he's a G, and although he does pull a little bit slow here, I don't know what he was waiting for. Or was it Thana I think we're waiting for? Oh yeah, I think we're waiting for Thana to get more mana. He always likes to drink as much as possible. He's a thirsty boy. So we do this a little bit differently to other people. Thing is, if the Breaker Kai casts early, everything here should be synced. And yeah, basically I pull this together all at once. And then we actually end up bloodlusting this, because this is technically for our comp scarier than the last boss. And you see we're just focused on demolishing the boss. I stand still here because I have shield wall, and I'm just blasting this Dominator into oblivion. You can see how I'm doing like a ridiculous amount of damage here. And yeah, basically I like to wait for the next breaker frontals, and then I go for the trapper. Because if I pull these 2 breakers instantly and go for the trapper, it can always be a little bit monk-esque. Something you have to bear in mind here is that you don't really want to shield charge this trapper. I should have shield charged a different mob here. The only thing is I was scared of desyncing the breakers, but they ended up getting desynced anyway, unfortunately. So I would have liked to have sent my shield charge way earlier, but it is what it is. But yeah, ideally I would have sent it onto a breaker, I guess, to not DR the trapper, so that it was still stunnable. Since this trapper can be really scary in terms of the amount of damage it can inflict on someone else. So yeah, I mean, to go over like more specifics about Prot Warrior, I would say the most important thing is that I am pretty much constantly looking at my absorb, and I'm looking at basically how long my ignore pain has left. So for the most part, a lot of Prot Warriors spam ignore pain way too much. That's going to leave you like really rage starved, and sometimes it's very unnecessary. The most important thing is that you always have ignore pain up of some kind, and it's something that you just want to keep up proactively all the time. You never want to let it run out, but you'd also at the same time, unless it's like there's a really specific big tank buster, you never really want to like over ignore pain. Unless you need it for a really big hit or whatever. But yeah, so this boss, I like to last stand on pull just to help me a little bit. I always place the char skin next to like, so that it has to run a little bit into the wall. And basically what I like to do is I like to sit in battle stance the whole time on this boss. I think being in defensive stance is a waste. Like, the thing is, as long as you press something for every single landslide, you can never die on this boss. You either have to get a reflect bug to die, or something very terrible has to go wrong for you to die. But essentially, what you want to do is you want to pre-reflect the landslide, and then it's going to be up for the Molten Crash and do humongous damage back to the boss. And then what you want to do is you want to press your next reflect basically off CD. So see, right now, I pre-shield wall that one, and then I'm just spamming reflect. So I get my reflect off here, and now the next reflect, I'm also just gonna basically mash off cooldown to basically get the third reflect off. It can be a little bit tricky sometimes because of spell queuing. See here, I shield charge, and this one I see I'm not quite getting. So I think what I could have done to make this more consistent is I could have, like, instead of instantly charging back to the boss, I could have waited. I mean, let's see here, how long could I have waited? Basically half a second, and I probably would have got this reflect off. Obviously, I see, shit, I'm not getting it. I insta-mash spell block, you know. It's a bit unfortunate because I miss a reflector, but at the same time, you know, I don't want to die or proc my cheat death for, like, no reason. So spell block is, like, kind of OP on this boss because basically every spell block you do, you're going to have it up for 2 landslides at least. This one I pre-reflect to basically get reflect on the boss. So the second landslide that happens in the second phase never comes with a Molten Crash, but I still shield wall it just for safety to have that little bit extra buffer, because I know for the third one I'm going to have reflect again for both the landslide and the Molten Crash. So basically, it's just the most important thing as a tank is that you're constantly rotating something all the time. You know, you're thinking how to min-max your defensive capabilities all the time. You see here, like, really my group should have been much closer with their crystal spikes for me to get, because the thing is, you have to focus on not really moving this boss too much. My group make it a little bit tricky for me because I could have got way better uptime, way better damage on the boss had they positioned closer. Unfortunately, I'm playing with a bunch of Muppets who I don't know, they don't care about the fucking tank, unfortunately. See, the next part, next landslide, I just pre-reflected, you know, to have it for the Molten Crash as well. This ad, we like to stun insta because we have 2 minutes. And so, you know, this ad is basically going to get deleted from the game. You see I pre-reflect here again. I get stuck in the wall for a second. I basically get my reflect off there again. Now, this third landslide that's going to come is kind of a weird one. It sometimes has a Molten Crash, it sometimes doesn't. You see here, it ends up not casting a Molten Crash. But yeah, we are going to lose a bit of uptime here, unfortunately. But it is what it is. But yeah, for the most part on this boss, I'm just thinking about, like, not wanting him to move that much. See, this one that just happened, sometimes that also comes with a Molten Crash. So it's a bit unfortunate because here it didn't. This next one, I'm going to just spell block and then reflect. And then it also means I'm going to have spell block for the last landslide. So here I actually make a mistake, but I'm kind of, I think I do this because the boss is so low that we just tunnel the boss. So basically I just stun the ad instantly. But this in a way was a little bit of a mistake because ideally I would have let that ad walk a bit longer, but it ends up not mattering at all. But yeah, this is essentially kind of how I think about different packs, different pools. As you see here, like, this key and how I played was by no means perfect at all. There's always something that you can do better, which is part of the, you know, the thing with this game, which is, you know, really, really fun, I think, is that, you know, there's almost always something you can do to improve your gameplay, get better. Sometimes it could be UI based, you know, you need to make it more clearer to see externals. That's something that I'm, like, changing all the time. It could be how you approach pools. It could be being able to fit in more defensive cooldowns where you previously weren't fitting in as many defensive cooldowns as you could have. There's almost always something to do, basically, in high keys to get better. That's basically this video, I guess. I will do more videos like this, a little bit more concise videos, I guess, on how to improve, how to get better, things you can think about in high keys. But yeah, anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you later. Bye-bye.